All right, it looks like we're live. Hello and welcome to Facebook Lunch Live with CORA Physical Therapy. I'm Dr. Samantha Gach. I'm here in our Ballwin, Missouri clinic today, and we're going to talk about deadlifts with low back pain. While I wait for a few more people to jump on, I'm going to introduce myself. Like I said, I'm here in our Ballwin, Missouri clinic. I've been practicing since January of this year. I started weightlifting in high school with a class that I took for physical education credit, and then picked it back up again in grad school as a great way to reduce stress and stay active throughout grad school without spending too much time on a treadmill or an elliptical. And then right after I graduated, I started CrossFit, which kind of brings us up to date with where we are now. I'd like to give a special shout out to Dr. Zach Long and the Institute of Clinical Excellence faculty for providing the continuing education that inspired this topic today. They have a lot of great information out there, and if you're a clinician listening to this, I highly recommend going on to their website at icephysio.com. They have a free continuing ed course on using deadlifts to treat low back pain. And so if this is a topic that interests you, they have some great resources there. All right, I see we have Caitlin joining us. Hi, welcome. All right, so let's get started. So low back pain can be a common problem for so many people, particularly athletes and weightlifters or anyone who's going to the gym. And so I'd like to start by looking at a commonly blamed exercise, which is the deadlift. Now, due to the heavy weight involved and the potential for bad technique, deadlifts get a really bad name. But in a research study done on patients with low back pain, they had low back pain for over 3 months to qualify for this study, and they did a 16-week free weight resistance program, including deadlifts, goblet squats, lunges, and planks. And they did these between 6 to 10, at their 6 to 10 rep, 1 rep max. And so that's some pretty heavy weight if you're thinking about moving that much weight. And in this study that they saw, they decreased their pain by 72% and saw a 76% improvement in their disability scores. So as clinicians, that's pretty significant stuff to look at. And so using the deadlift and starting a deadlift program, if you're not already, can be a great way to keep your back strong and healthy and ready to tackle whatever exercise or task that you need to do, from picking up a toddler to working out to moving in your home. Whatever you need to do, your back's going to be primed and ready for it. So deadlifts, they strengthen the hamstrings, glutes, and the back muscles. And so performing them properly is very key. We want to make sure that back stays straight, and we're recruiting those muscles properly to make sure that you don't have any back pain or stiffness. So today what we're going to look at is dive into some of that technique work, as well as some exercises that personally I like to do before and after my deadlift sessions, just to make sure that I don't stiffen up and get sore later on in the day. Unfortunately, we don't have a barbell at this clinic yet, so bear with me as we demonstrate. I have our student Jordan here, and he's going to help me demonstrate using a PVC pipe today. All right, so if we are in the frame here, we might be filming some of this and talking over as Jordan demonstrates. But for technique, what we're gonna do, we wanna make sure that this is a hip hinge dominant pattern. And so what that means, we want soft knees, his hips should push back, and a neutral spine. So all that motion should be coming from the hips, just like that. So you'll see that his knees aren't completely straight, which reduces the stress on his low back as we're able to use those hamstrings a little bit more. And the hips and the shoulders should move together. His feet are about hip width apart. So we don't need necessarily a wider stance like a squat stance. And so we'll have him demonstrate one more time just so we can see how that all moves together. Good. All right. So some of the biggest faults we see start with rounding of the spine. So we're going to have Jordan demonstrate a really bad deadlift with a very rounded back. And this is something that we want to watch to avoid because that can cause some of that big bad back pain that we're so warned about. And so whenever I see athletes or anyone performing deadlifts like this with a big rounded back, what I like to do is have them take a PVC pipe. And so what we're going to do, we're going to have Jordan hold it behind his head and then right at his low back. And so what that's going to do, we're going to tell him, Jordan, I want your back to stay flat against that PVC pipe, and then now I just want you to bend over from the hips. Good, and then right back up. And if he's able to do that, then this is a really good exercise to do as a warm-up to just prime those muscles and make sure you're recruiting the right muscles before starting to lift with heavier weight. And so the next problem is sometimes people get too squatty with their setup. So if we have Jordan set up with the bar about mid-shin, and he is too squatty with his hips a little too low to the ground, what that can cause is the bar moves forward in front of his feet a little more to make room for those knees, and it creates more torque on the hips and strain in the low back. So if you have someone who's starting with their hips too low, then what you want to do is cue them to create a little more tension in their hamstrings. So instead of starting too low, we want him just about right there where he's able to maintain some tension in his hamstrings and kind of keep the load moving through the back of his legs. All right, and then one of the other big faults that we see with a deadlift is the bar path. And so if the bar is too far in front of his body at the bottom of the deadlift, what that's going to do, so his arms are hanging straight down. So this is a big problem I see a lot in the clinic and with athletes because the arms are hanging straight down. But what you want to do is pull your lats, use your lats to pull your arms closer to the body so that barbell traces the shins and the legs more as they move. And so whenever you hold the bar further away and you aren't able to get that proper lat engagement, what that does is increases the moment arm around the hip and strains the low back. We've found through research that improving lat engagement can improve the efficiency of the deadlift by 3 to 5%, which improves bar path and then decreases that stress on the low back. So one of my favorite exercises to do for this is a banded deadlift, where I'm going to take a TheraBand and put it in the middle of, right now, our PVC pipe, but this can also be done with a barbell if you have those as well. And it cues the athlete to pull their lats in. Another cue I like to use is to have them think that they have $100 bills tucked in their armpits, and they need to squeeze them nice and tight so that they don't lose those $100 bills. And so I'm going to demonstrate that banded deadlift with Jordan here. So we have that black TheraBand. All right. And so all you need to do is just take a TheraBand we have in the clinic. I put it right about the middle, if I can get it there today. There we go. And then I squat down with him to cue that through the whole motion. So make sure you're going down to mid-shin here. Good. And so you can see he's keeping that bar nice and close to his body and really engaging the lats. You feel the lats firing a little bit there? Yeah. Good. Perfect. All right. We'll take that off. Good. So there's one last fault that I want to talk about here, And that is, so for athletes who are already doing deadlifts, if you have someone come in and or you are a person who has back pain at the top of the deadlift, sometimes we see people are extending too much in their back. So Jordan's going to demonstrate this for us. You can really see him arch his back, because if you're a weightlifter, you know that the rep only counts if you finish in total hip extension. And so a lot of times people over-exaggerate that with a lot of back pain. And so what I want to cue him to do is, instead of extending the back so far, we want to focus on squeezing the glutes to lock out the hips instead. And what that should do, keeping the spine neutral and not hyperextending, and focus on still getting that hip extension, but bringing it from a different muscle, a much stronger muscle like the glutes, instead of putting all that stress on the back. All right, so now that we have technique down, what I want to do is go into some of my favorite stretches and exercises to do to prime my body, make sure that I'm going to be, one, prepared for the deadlift, and then two, make sure I don't stiffen up afterwards. So one of my favorite things to start with, and we'll have to bear with Jordan here, we tried this a little earlier and he's a little tight, as a lot of us might be, so it might be a good demonstration of what this will look like for some of you guys. But what I like to do is we've been talking about deadlifts too long. We'll do a down dog into a world's greatest stretch. So what Jordan's gonna do is get down in plank position on the floor, and then push his hips back into a down dog position. And then we'll have him step one foot up to his hand as close as he can get it. Ideally, that foot will come all the way up, but we are where we are. And what he's gonna do, that hand by his foot, he wants to drop that elbow as close to the ground as he can. If that's not too far, that's okay. And then pick that hand up and rotate and look up at our ceiling. Good. Now hold there for a second and then bring it back down. Kick that leg back to the other one. Push back up into down dog, and then repeat on the other side. So this is a great stretch to warm up the hips and bring everything, just get everything moving, get the back moving, get the hips moving. It's really good. I recommend it for just about any low body workout, whether you're deadlifting or squatting. This is one you just can't really go wrong with. So the next exercise that I want to show today is called a Jefferson curl. Now, this is one that gets a little heat because we are having Jordan pick up a ball, and what he's going to do is slowly bend down segment by segment. And so just one vertebrae at a time going up, and then same thing, one vertebrae at a time going back. So you see he comes right back to neutral. He doesn't hyperextend with it, but what this does is train those back muscles. So if there is any movement, as physical therapists know, we need to train the muscles through the range of motion that we need them to move through. And so this starts to initiate some of that movement and strengthening throughout a range of motion. So if there is any spine movement, the spine is better prepared to handle it. If anyone here has toddlers or kids, you know they're squirmy and you cannot keep a straight back for all of that. And so starting to incorporate a Jefferson curl is going to help make sure that your back is ready and capable of handling weight with movement. Now, I say weight, what I mean is very, very lightweight. Jordan is using an 8-pound ball, and personally, I don't go much higher than that on these. This is one that you want to do more reps and a much, much lighter weight, just because the spine is delicate and they have very tiny muscles that aren't capable. We don't want to bend the spine with heavy loads. So keeping this light is going to be key to making sure that we're improving the strength of the spine throughout its range of motion, but not going to cause any soreness later on. All right, so the last exercise that I want to do today, it looks kind of funny. This is another one from Dr. Zach Long, This is called the Quadratus Lumborum walks, or I believe, Jordan, what were you calling it?
Butt scoots.
Butt scoots. So, as it sounds, what we're gonna do, we're gonna have Jordan sitting down here. His back is going to stay as straight as he can, and I'm gonna have him keep his knees straight, pick up one foot and scoot it forward. So this helps strengthen the Quadratus Lumborum, which is pretty important and can cause a lot of stiffness. We do a lot of stretches for the Quadratus Lumborum here at physical therapy, and so strengthening so it's ready to handle whatever loads you want to throw at it is going to help big time to make sure that it's primed and ready to handle whatever you want to throw at it. All right. So I believe that's about all we have for you today. I'd like to open this up if anyone has any questions. I would love to answer anything that you want to know that we didn't cover today. All right, well, it doesn't look like there's any questions, but if you have any questions later, feel free to leave a comment on the video. We'll be happy to go through and see if we can help you all out. Thanks again. If you are new to deadlifting, please, please, please find a personal trainer or a coach to help you through your first time. We don't want anyone out there getting injured, and it is always good to help make sure that you have someone who knows what they're doing watching your technique the first time you try lifting. All right. Thanks again for joining us today. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.